underestimated, we the ones.
All right, it's the Underdogs. We're back. Maybe the best week of the year. I'm Jordan Brenner, joined as always by Peter Keating, and we're ready to talk some NFL. What's up, Peter?
How's it going, Jordan? I'm psyched. I'm amped. How about you?
Well, I'm even more psyched because as our guest for the first week of the NFL season, we've got Chris Raybon from the Action Network. I don't like to geek out over guests very often, but Chris is as good as it gets. Chris, are those top 5 ranker trophies behind you that I'm seeing?
Oh, yeah, a little something. You know, I dabble in the fantasy game, too. Just a little bit.
So if you don't follow Chris, and you really should, Action Network, he hosts DFS podcasts, gambling podcasts. The guy is sharp, predictive analytics. He and Sean Kerner host the Fantasy Flex, which is my go-to fantasy podcast every week. And we want to sort of take a look early this season at how to approach early season NFL betting. So there's nobody better to have on than Chris. So Chris, right off the start, where do you, as a professional gambler, I would say, where do you find an edge early in the season? Is there knowledge that sharp bettors can find before the public has adjusted?
I think so. I mean, I would say I always start with underdogs. Usually about 90 to 95% of my bets are going to be on underdogs. So what I'm really doing when I'm starting to break down a slate is I'm just kind of looking at underdogs. And I know you guys do the same thing. Early in the season, underdogs tend to be the most undervalued because there is a lot of bias toward what happened last season. And I think one of the biggest things that I would say even sharp bettors or big money bettors can get this wrong, and I've heard them get this wrong when they explain their process, is a lot of times you'll hear people say, okay, I'm going to kind of not go too hard until we have 4 weeks of data, or, you know, this and that. Whereas, you know, these, like, the NFL is dynamic. Like, you should always be using some data from prior seasons, just depending on what you're breaking down. Like, I don't need 4 weeks of data for the Chiefs to know Patrick Mahomes is an elite quarterback. In fact, I should be factoring in, you know, as much of Mahomes' career as I possibly can when I'm, you know, power rating the Chiefs, you know. So it's really about kind of finding the relevant sample sizes, accounting for the changes, you know, taking out the luck, you know, things like turnovers and missed field goal luck and all those different things early in the season. But generally speaking, the market underrates the underdogs. You know, they underrate teams. If you just look at straight up trends, you'll see that, you know, underdogs crush the first, you know, month or 6 weeks of the season. But you also have like teams that didn't make the playoffs the prior year in week 1 crush it. Divisional dogs in week 1 crush it, because we know those games are always going to be closer. You know, even things like a rookie head coach in his first road game. You would think that, okay, that's a bad spot for the rookie head coach. But again, the market is over adjusting. So we find that, you know, rookie head coach first ever road game, they're hitting about 58% against the spread. So really, whatever you think, if you're a casual bettor, that is, if whatever you think, go against it. You know, like if you feel like, oh, this is, you know, like I'm trying to think of it, like the Texans and the Ravens. You look at that, oh man, the Ravens -9.5, -10 against the Texans, rookie quarterback, first time head coach. They're going to just blow them out. The Texans are to play. Week 2 is one of my favorite weeks because that's the overreaction week to week 1. So, right?
Overreaction.
And week 3 is kind of a continuation of that because, you know, if a team goes like 2-0, oh my God, they're amazing. If they cover 2 in a row, oh my God, they're covering every game. They're going to go 17-0 against the spread. So, you know, those weeks 2 and 3 kind of the overreaction weeks. And then as you start to hit, you know, week 4, 5, 6, that's when some of the trends start dying down as far as some of the more basic ones, because like, again, early in the season, I mean, underdogs in almost any spot you could think of, whether it's didn't make the postseason last year, whether it's on the road, divisional, like all these different spots. Like once you get to first month, now I'm still betting almost all underdogs, but it's just a little more, like you said, kind of factoring in what's going on this season, looking deeper into the matchups and things like that. And I'm doing that anyway. I would never bet like a trend or anything blindly. I always have to gut check it and make sure that I actually have football reasons. But a lot of times, early in the season, especially if you're a casual bettor, you can kind of use those trends as a starting point because there's so many of those dog trends that are 60% plus.
So let's get into some picks. I know people are excited to start their season. A little bit later, you're our honored first guest for year 2 of the Underdog contest, where we pick weekly underdogs. We'll get into that a little later. But first, guys, as per tradition, we like to start off any big sports season by picking long shot winners to win the championship. So I think let's do that, and let's look at any fun sort of longer shot props that we may have. Guys, you want to do Super Bowl champs first? You want to roll that?
Let's go, Jordan. Who's your off the wall Super Bowl pick?
All right. So our rule is it's got to be a plus 1,000 team or higher. So I've got 2 for you. And one is I get.
Are we banning the Jets from being picked just because we don't need to hear more about them, or are the Jets eligible to be selected?
No, the Jets. That's
plus 1,000 and your name isn't the Jets.
Yeah. No. All right. First up. I get sucked in by them every year, but the Chargers at plus 2,500. At some point, this talent has to come together. They've got one of the best young quarterbacks in football in Justin Herbert, 4 dynamic wide receivers. Our friend of the show, Austin Eckler.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, there's a poster, I think, of one athlete up in Jordan's room, and I believe his name is Austin Eckler. I think that's accurate.
They've got a top 10 offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus. They're going to score points. The question, obviously, is their defense. It was mediocre last year. The question is, how much does a full season of Joey Bosa and J.C. Jackson mean? What does Khalil Mack have left? What does the addition of Eric Kendricks bring? I think at plus 2,500, there's some value there. And the other one, boys, the Giants are plus 6,500. They're plus 2,800 to win the NFC. Do I think they will win? Do I think they will win the Super Bowl? No. But should they be ranked behind the Falcons and Bears and Steelers? Should the Vikings be at plus 3,500? Should they be tied with Washington, New England, and Green Bay? No. Look, we talk about big underdogs and what it takes all the time, Peter. And forecasting a big underdog to win means what happens if a whole bunch of things break right. So, what happens if Evan Neal makes an Andrew Thomas-like leap at right tackle? What happens if John Michael Schmidt solidifies the interior of the line? What kind of a back is Saquon Barkley at that point?
Well, if those first 2 things happen, Barkley could run for 2,000 yards.
Right. I think Daniel Jones is a very good quarterback. What does he look like behind a better offensive line with more weapons like Waller and Hyatt? What if Kayvon Thibodeau emerges as a consistent game-wrecking edge rusher? Put him with that defensive line. There's improvement at the inside linebacker spot. What if they unlock Isaiah Simmons' athleticism? And what if their 2 rookie corners play? Again, a lot of what ifs. But I think if you're looking at a team, again, that far down the board, it has to be something you can dream on. So Giants plus 6,500 or plus 2,800 to win the NFC intrigues me.
All right, I'll keep mine shorter than Jordan's.
Wait, no comments? You rolling your eyes, Chris?
I think we love the Giants, Jordan. Plus 6,500 it's insulting that they're at the same level on betting lines as the Commanders. Okay, yeah. I agree with that. I think an awful lot has to break right for this team, and I think people are accustomed now to watching the Giants have good luck, some of which they made through good coaching and good decisions, good execution. But, Jordan, when a team improves by 5 or more games from one season to the next, like the Giants did.
I know. They won a lot of close games. Look,
very rarely do they sustain that. Teams often, on average, stay around that level. If they establish that level of improvement, they don't regress too hard. But some of them do, and very few of them keep improving.
Yes, regression. If you ask me, what's the more likely scenario, a Super Bowl appearance
or
regression?
It's the schedule. It's being able to continue to replace injured players with productive players. Like, they found an awful lot of guys on the street last year who walked in and had really fit really well with them. They've made good trades, but I don't know, Jordan. I'm as big a fan as you can find of the Giants, but this team looks like a 10-win team to me.
All right, give me a quicker pick that you've got.
A quicker pick, Jordan. There's one active player in the NFL who's won an MVP who could do it again. His name is Lamar Jackson. The reason people are underrating the Ravens is because the last time they saw the Ravens, they were in the middle of a stretch where Lamar was hurt, in which they scored 3 points against Cleveland. What was it? 13 against Pittsburgh, 17 against Cincinnati. That's how they closed out last year. Jordan, everybody's heard about Odell and Bateman and the draft picks. That offense is going to be clicking at a high level if Lamar can stay upright, plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl. We've seen Burrow and the Bengals and Josh Allen and the Bills at their very best. We haven't seen Lamar at his very best in a while. This is a bet on Lamar staying healthy and, let me see, plus 1,800, right? Plus 1,800. They were 8-4 with Lamar last year. And one last thing. People don't seem to be as excited about the Ravens defense as in previous seasons. They gave up the third fewest points in the league last year. Championship-level defense, championship-level offense through 2/3 of the season last year. Give me the Ravens at plus 1,800.
All right, Chris, make us feel stupid now.
So the Chargers were the team that I have written down. So I have to. That's why I stay quiet.
No. You made Jordan's season.
I love that pick. I think the key for me is you have all the premium positions covered: quarterback, wide receiver, left tackle, edge rusher with two with Mack and Bosa. And Mack was fine last year. And cornerback, and Jackson, by the way, is probably the worst of their cornerbacks. At least he was last year. And so if he can improve, that would be major. They also have other blue chip guys like Lindsley at center, Derwin James at safety, Eckler obviously. But when you look at the AFC, it's been Mahomes to the championship game every year. Brady was there. He got to the Super Bowl. He's gone. So it's been Mahomes and Burrow. Throw Allen in there because the Bills have caught some tough breaks. So that's who the AFC goes through, right? So if I want a quarterback, he's going to have to beat probably two of those three guys of Burrow, Mahomes, and Josh Allen. Who do I trust to do that? Justin Herbert. I trust him more than 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I trust him more than perpetually injured. Can he actually be a volume passer, Lamar Jackson? Inconsistent Trevor Lawrence, although I do think he'll make another leap forward this year with Calvin Ridley, but I have questions about the rest of that team. I think they're still a year away. Better than Tua, who's one hit away at all times. Better than Deshaun Watson, who looked like he left his game at the massage parlor. So I'm rolling with Herbert. I like the coach. I think Staley is, he gets a lot of criticism, and sometimes it's rightfully so. But he's analytically driven and he's aggressive. And when you're talking about a 25-1, you want some of that variance there. Kellen Moore, they're going to throw downfield. They just, health, obviously, just like every team. But, I think it's going to be tougher for the Chiefs this year. The AFC is going to be a gauntlet. So I would go with the best quarterback. And you look at Herbert, I'd take him over any of the quarterbacks in the NFC as well. But I do like that Giants pick. I think the Cowboys are another team. I think people are kind of sleeping on them. All of a sudden, Dak's like this interception machine. Mike McCarthy's going to ruin the offense. Like, the Cowboys have been top 5 in point differential the last 2 years. Last year, they did that with Dak missing 5 games and leading the league in interception. That's pretty impressive. So if Dallas can just correct a few things, hopefully their kicker doesn't, kick away the season. But, I think Dallas is very slept on. 0 holes on that roster. 0 holes.
All right, real quick, because we got to get out of this segment. We got 45 seconds each to nail a prop. So I'm gonna go real quick with mine. Tony Pollard plus 1,600 to lead the league in rushing. Piggybacking off you, my question is, who's the backup there? I feel like he's going to get a boatload of work. Good offensive line. They want to run the ball. So I think there's some value there. Pollard plus 1,600 to lead the league in rushing. Peter, quick prop.
I don't have long odds on the props. I just have a few over-unders. I'll give you 2 really quick. Jahmyr Gibbs over 625.5 yards. Come on, people. Come on. And Deshaun Watson to go over 11.5 interceptions. He was throwing at that interception rate, that number of interceptions over full season, even before last year. Last year, he wasn't even as good as Jacoby Brissett.
All right, Chris, finish up the segment with a prop.
I'll go Justin Herbert to lead the league in passing at 6-1. Dak increased by over 60 yards per game in his first year. under Kellen Moore. Justin Herbert already the top quarterback in terms of passing yards per game through the first 3 years of his career among quarterbacks that started 40-plus games. And I also got to shout out the Titans plus 350 to win the AFC South. The Titans are the best team in the AFC South. Stop it.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with the Underdog contest right after this. All right, we're back, and it is year 2 of the Underdogs contest. If you don't remember, the rules are pretty simple. Every week, Peter and I and a guest participate in a snake draft of underdog picks for a given NFL week. The only games that are eligible is where a team is favored by a field goal or more. So you have to pick an underdog. If they cover, you get 1 point. If they win outright, you get an additional point. And if they are an underdog of 6 or more, and they win outright, you get a third point. So guys, with that in mind, let's dive into week 1. We hired an independent accounting firm to draw a list, and Chris, you ended up with the first pick, followed by me and then Peter. So Chris, start us off. The whole board is yours with the first pick in the 2023 Underdog draft. Who will you take?
Titans plus 3 at the Saints. Mike Vrabel. I believe in Mike Vrabel. His teams always exceed expectations. He always coaches them up. When they're underdogs by at least a field goal, 22-9-1 against the spread, 71% since he took over. And I'm gunning for that extra point because Vrabel is one of the few coaches in NFL history that has a winning straight-up record as a moneyline underdog. He is 20-19, 51% in his career. I think this Titan defense is very good. Great players on all 3 levels of that defense. Left tackle Andre Dillard. Everyone's criticizing him, but he's given up 1 sack over his last 261 pass blocking snaps over the last 2 years. I really think the only weakness on the Titans is really that right tackle spot. Chris Hubbard, I don't know what's going on there, but every team has a weakness. I think this Titan team is very good and a lot better than people think. A lot more like the teams of years past than that 0-7 finish of last season.
I love it. I had it on my board, and also I think there's been some overrating of the Saints going on this summer. Largely because of the easy schedule, but I've got a lot of questions about that team. All right, I'm up. So I'm scratching that one off. So, Chris, I thought you were going to go with my first pick, which I'm going to go with instead here, is the Texans plus 10 against the Ravens. The line's too big. Look, we were on Houston, Peter, going back to the spring. I'm still taking credit for moving their win total line, even though I didn't really. We
moved the market. Again.
This could be a backdoor cover. This could be, the Ravens are adjusting to a new offense with Todd Monken. I think Texans are much livelier this year. They're not tanking like they were a year ago. I think C.J. Stroud, whatever he is, it's better than what Davis Mills was last year, I think. I like Dameon Pierce. I think their defense is better. Do I think they're going to win outright? No. Am I going to take the Ravens in a survival pool? Probably. But if I can get 10 points, I'm all about it. So give me the Texans plus 10.
Makes sense. There's a lot of reasons to like Houston to improve. Watching the Houston early last season when they would fight really hard and still lose and then they gave up, it was a sad season to watch. They're not giving up this season, and that makes this a viable pick, I think. I don't think it's as good as my pick coming up.
Well, you got 2 of them. So
I got 2 of them. 2 excited. This year, Chris, I understand how the snake draft works, how many teams I have to prepare. Not going to get boxed into picking the Jets for 6 weeks in a row like last year. Jordan, Chris, give me Tampa Bay at plus 6.5 at Minnesota. By now, we've all heard the Vikings won a record 11 one-score games last year. That's why they went 13-4. They were outscored going 13-4. But even that doesn't actually capture how much Minnesota should have to prove before we put money on them this year. Last year, according to the Football Outsiders DVOA, the adjusted value over average, Vikings ranked 20th on offense, 27th on defense, for good measure, 30th on special teams. Meanwhile, for the moment, Baker Mayfield is upright, and he played as well at the end of last season as Kirk Cousins did. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they're still there somehow. Tampa Bay has been roasted, but their defense has been in the top dozen almost every year for the past few years. So There's a lot of points. Tampa Bay is in a state of confusion, but they're healthy for the moment. And Minnesota is nowhere near as good. And at this time of year, you got to look at what you know from last year, like what Chris said, regress what's noisy, and depend on what you can. So I say Tampa Bay at Minnesota. My second pick, sort of similar reasoning in some ways. I'm going to take Detroit now plus 5.5 at Kansas City. Jordan, who's the most profitable quarterback in football against the spread over the past 5 years?
Me?
No, it's not me or you or even Chris. It's Jared Goff. Meanwhile, it's true. Nobody's won as many games in their first 5 years as Patrick Mahomes. 64-16 straight up past 5 years. But again, as a favorite, Mahomes is 41-42-1. I mean, as a favorite of 3.5 or more against the spread, Mahomes is 30-37-1. Now look, Thursday night openers, Super Bowl champs, they all usually do really well week 1, but the Lions are a really good opponent. Travis Kelce is hurt. I'll get out of this now because we're running out of time. Detroit plus 5.5 against KC.
Well, and do we think Kelce is going to play? And Chris, did the Kelce injury news? How much did it move this line? 1.5?
Yeah,
1.5. Yep, it's down to 5 at most books I see, which is a bit much of a move, but it's understandable.
Yeah, Peter, you're getting them at 5, not 5.5 here, by the way.
5. That just happened. Since I last looked, the line's moved another 0.5 point. Jordan, you think Gibbs can replace DeAndre Swift, right? Come on.
I'm on Team David Montgomery, to be honest. I'm on Team David Montgomery. That's the Lions back.
Well, somebody can replace him. Lions are a good team.
All right. Well, this was high on. So you get the Lions plus 5. This was high on my list, so I'm gonna pivot. I might as well stick with what I've been talking about this whole show. The New York Football Giants are getting 3 points at home against Dallas. It's the one hurdle they couldn't overcome last year. I think they're well suited to challenge the Cowboys this year. I like what we've talked about. I like the changes they've made on their offense. I think a lot is depending on 2 rookie corners, but big coaching advantage, I think, in this game. I like that I have a chance at the bonus point for a straight-up win here. Give me the Giants getting 3 at home against the Cowboys. And Chris,
I'll say this: if they win this game, it's a really good omen for the season. If they're competitive at the Cowboys level, Cowboys are better than people think. It's going to be a big deal. I'll also say I don't know if any matchup in the entire league has a bigger kicking advantage for one team than the Giants over the Cowboys this weekend, for what it's worth.
Well, I hope there's some ass kicking involved. But Peter, let's let Chris finish this up.
All right, so I got 2 picks now or 1?
1. We're just 2. We each make 2 picks. This is the final pick of the draft.
Ooh, okay. I am going to roll with the Las Vegas Raiders plus 4 at the Denver Broncos. Y'all pretty much took all the picks I actually wanted, but I can't justify the Denver Broncos coming off the season they had being favored by more than a field goal against another similarly mediocre team. Obviously, the Broncos have a better defense, but this is a division game, and again, this is week 1, and we see this all the time where people look at the Broncos and say, "Oh, this team is like 4 points. That's significant." That's more than a field goal when we really don't know how this team's going to look with Sean Payton. We don't know a lot about the Raiders either because they're switching up their quarterback. But I think the Raiders in year 2 of McDaniel's scheme are, he's getting some of his guys in. I think it's going to be a little more cohesive. And by the way, the Broncos haven't beaten the Raiders in how long? Like it's been, I think 6 straight games. So, we see this week 1 underdogs that won 4 to 6 games, 68-34 against the spread, 67%. Over the last 2 decades. Week 1 divisional dogs, 61-39 and 261% against the spread over the last 2 decades. I could keep going, but just too many points. I love it when the Raiders could lose by a field goal and I still win my bet.
All right, so recapping, Chris has the Titans plus 3 against the Saints and the Raiders plus 4 against the Broncos. I have the Giants plus 3 against the Cowboys and the Texans plus 10 against the Ravens. And Peter has the Lions plus 5 against the Chiefs. and the Bucks +6 against the Vikings. And we'll see you guys next week.